Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the rain-slicked mountain passes, fractured vehicular trauma, and small-town police cover-ups of highway transit suspense, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of waking memory fragmentation, weaponized domestic gaslighting, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of a neurologically compromised asset running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, panic-inducing urban residential perimeters of a completely destabilized psychological baseline, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, truth-shattering deception matrix with Do You Remember? The exceptional, pulse-pounding structural masterpiece engineered by the absolute, undisputed sovereign of neck-snapping domestic twists, unreliable narrator statecraft, and high-velocity marital paranoia, Freida McFadden. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, underestimated female trauma survivor asset running an unyielding safety loop, an encroaching, deceptively attentive husband asset running a high-stakes proximity tracking routine, and an absolute defense of a woman's final personal sovereignty metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged medical histories, corrupt spousal surveillance, and a deadly ring of active identity frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated daily routine boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory domestic shadow network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent woman wakes up every single morning with zero memory of the last 10 years, forced to trust the strange man claiming to be her husband until she finds a trail of her own hidden warnings diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. McFadden completely dominates the high-precision retrograde amnesia red flags meets suffocating marital hostility dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre varks like S.J. Watson, Gillian Flynn, B.A. Paris, and Lucy Foley, while treating realistic neuroforensic registics, complex multi-timeline archival alignment arcs, and protective high-density psychological extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, Tess, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total short-term memory reset sequence every time she closes her eyes, an entirely erased decade of life history, and a hyper-visible targeting profile inside her own home. Behind Tess's rigorous medical charts and tense morning orientation logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried high society secrets, and sharp high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of trying to survive severe brain trauma and navigating intense personal isolation, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an aggressive internal handler, parsing complex behavioral shifts from the handsome stranger sleeping beside her, and shielding her vulnerable sanctuary nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. A hidden notebook written in her own verified handwriting cross-references her current marital environment with a high-level calculated malice, instantly revealing that the official timeline she is fed every morning is a total fabrication. As the hostile predator's containment phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across her repeating 24-hour timeline, a series of defensive countermeasures and clandestine journal entries tracks her frantic race against her own biological clock. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot when her independent counter-investigative maneuvers and raw analytical output reveal that her husband's hidden archival profile is radically, impossibly altering the household's historical balance of power. The standard boundaries of routine domestic caretaking and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war across their private living quarters, where deceptive domestic allies masking their true identities, highly manipulative medical authorities, and a calculation-heavy psychological shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the isolated suburban hallways, dark bathroom mirror perimeters, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone.
Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw mental stamina to preserve her focus before his relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector is purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep systemic medication leverage, continuous digital surveillance loops, and persistent psychological dominance to wipe her mental hard drive every night, only to realize her hardened defensive protocols and shifting counter-narratives match his raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard security barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the domestic elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Freida McFadden reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial memory wipe or managing a single day of deception. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of spousal manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their shared perimeter, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, domestic suspense noir, amnesia mystery, and high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one-found notebook page triggers a fatal bedroom showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. McFadden writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, sterile medical linoleum, old paper ink, heavy dust, dynamic adrenaline, spilled copper, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Do You Remember is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unput-outable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.